Good evening, dear learner, and welcome again. Before we begin, remember, if you enjoy stories that inspire your heart and also help you grow your English, don't forget to subscribe. Stay with me until the end, because this journey will show you how one man faced the most dangerous enemy of all, the one living inside himself. Now let's begin. The city outside was alive with neon lights, cars rushing past, and people chasing dreams. But inside a dim, cluttered apartment, time stood still. Clothes were piled like mountains on the floor. Dirty dishes gathered armies in the sink, and half-finished notebooks lay forgotten under the couch. There, on that couch, lay a young man named Daniel. He wasn't poor. He wasn't sick. He wasn't even unlucky. He had a decent job in an office, a girlfriend who believed in him, and friends who often invited him out. From the outside, Daniel's life looked perfectly normal, but on the inside, he was drowning. Every night he whispered the same promise. Tomorrow I will change. Tomorrow I will wake up early. Tomorrow I will start working on my goals. And every morning, tomorrow betrayed him. The alarm rang at 6:30. His hand reached out, not for the shower, not for his shoes, but for the glowing screen of his phone. Endless scrolling, endless distractions. By the time he looked up, the morning had vanished. The day was half-wasted, and Daniel sighed, whispering to himself, "I'll try again tomorrow." But denial is a sweet poison. It feels safe while it slowly kills. One evening, he returned home to find a plain white envelope pushed under his door. At first, he thought it was another electricity bill, but when he opened it, his hands trembled. It was from his manager. "Daniel, your performance has declined sharply. Deadlines missed. Meetings skipped. This is your final warning. Get control of yourself, or you will lose your position." The word stabbed him awake like cold water. Lose his job, his rent, his food, his very stability. Everything was tied to that paycheck. For the first time, Daniel felt fear heavier than his excuses. That night, he stood in front of the mirror. His reflection stared back at him. Tired eyes, pale skin, a man fading under the weight of his own laziness. He touched the glass and whispered, "When did I lose myself?" But the mirror gave no answer. He remembered his father's words from years ago. If you don't command yourself, the world will command you. Back then, Daniel had laughed, thinking life would always give him another chance. But now, he realized chances were running out. The battle was no longer outside. The true enemy lived within him: laziness, excuses, and the seductive comfort of tomorrow. Unless Daniel learned to master himself, he would watch his entire life crumble piece by piece. This was the beginning of his war. Sparkle's learning focus. Notice the mix of past simple tense for completed actions. He returned, he whispered, he remembered, and past continuous tense for ongoing habits. He was scrolling. His life was unraveling. This combination makes the story feel alive. The metaphor denial is a sweet poison, shows how dangerous comfort can be. And the phrase, "tomorrow betrayed him," is an idiom teaching us that waiting for the future often destroys the present. Now reflect. What main problem was Daniel facing in his daily life? How did his manager warn him? What lesson did his father once give him? Try retelling the part where Daniel looked into the mirror using past simple verbs. He stood. He whispered. He remembered. The next morning, the alarm rang like a distant bell in a fog. Daniel's hand hovered over the phone, the old habit calling him back like the tide. He stopped. His thumb trembled, then drifted away. A small victory, fragile as a match flame in wind. At the office, the corridors hummed with the sharp rhythm of keyboards and quiet ambition. His manager, Mr. Stanton, sent a short message. "My office. Now." Daniel entered to find a man who had already decided between mercy and truth. "You're talented," Mr. Stanton said, voice steady, eyes tired. "But talent without discipline is like an engine with no fuel. 3 deadlines missed. 2 meetings skipped. 1 last chance." He slid a printed plan across the desk. 7 days. Deliver the market report and the proposal. On time, clean, complete. If you do, we reset. If you don't, we part ways. The paper felt heavier than metal in Daniel's hands. He nodded, mouth dry, Excuses rose like smoke, but dissolved before they reached air. "I understand," he said. That evening, rain pushed against the windows of the cafe where Leah waited. She looked at him with the softness of someone who has believed for a long time and the caution of someone who is running out of belief. "You keep promising," she said quietly, stirring her tea though it needed no sugar. "But promises without action are just lullabies for the mind." Daniel searched her face for anger, found only sadness. "I don't know if I can watch you disappear, Daniel. Not again." Outside, thunder rolled like a judge knocking for order. He walked home with the printed plan under his coat, as if protecting it could protect his future. The apartment greeted him with the same mess, the same smell of delay. He stood in the doorway, listening to the silence that accused him more loudly than any voice. At 9 p.m., the old course began. "Start tomorrow. You're tired. One more episode. One more scroll. One more hour." He felt himself tilting toward the couch, the screen, the drift. Then something inside snapped, not a break, but a click, like a lock turning on the right key. He said aloud to the empty room, the words tasting like medicine, "I am my own worst enemy." And then, like a soldier reporting for duty, he placed the phone in a drawer, set a kitchen timer for 20 minutes, and opened his laptop. The first 5 minutes were a storm of resistance. His mind ran in circles. His eyes searched for anything easier than focus. He kept typing. Numbers first, then notes, then a rough outline. When the timer rang, he didn't stop. The lines began to steady, like a hand learning to write again after years of shaking. At midnight, he stood, stretched, and looked around. Nothing had changed, and everything had. The sink still held plates. The floor still held clothes, but the desk held an outline, and his chest held air that felt honest. Before sleep, he wrote 2 sentences on a sticky note and pressed it to the mirror. Discipline over delay. Action over excuse. The words didn't make him a new man, but they marked a new direction. And directions, followed long enough, become destinies. He turned off the light. The rain slowed. Somewhere inside the dark, a beginning continued. Sparkles learning focus. Notice how direct dialogue. You're talented, but talent without discipline. Deliver strong truths in simple, memorable lines. The idiom, "promises without action are lullabies for the mind," shows how comforting words can quietly put our progress to sleep. In grammar, past simple carries decisive moves. He nodded, he opened, he wrote. While past continuous paints the scene, rain was pushing, corridors were humming. To create cinematic flow, reflect and practice. Why did Mr. Stanton give Daniel one last chance, instead of firing him immediately? What does Leah mean by lullaby for the mind? Retell the moment Daniel chose a timer over the couch, using past simple verbs only. The next morning, Daniel woke before the alarm. For a moment, he thought something was wrong. The city outside was still asleep, the sky heavy with gray. His phone glowed on the nightstand, buzzing softly with notifications. Instinct pulled at him. Just one scroll. Just one look. But halfway there, his hand froze. He whispered into the stillness. Not today. That refusal, tiny as it seemed, felt like striking a match in the dark. He stood, stretched, and walked into the kitchen. Dust and dishes greeted him like old enemies, yet he faced them. He filled the sink with hot water, and as the plates clinked against each other, he felt a rhythm rising inside him. Small but alive. At the office, colleagues blinked in mild surprise. Daniel was early. His manager raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Daniel opened his laptop, the document staring at him like a wall. For weeks, he had postponed this report. Now he typed the first sentence. It came slow, clumsy, awkward. Laziness whispered in his ear, "Check your phone. Take a break. You've earned it." But then Leah's voice returned in his mind, gentle, sad, almost breaking. "I don't know if you even care about us anymore." That memory burned hotter than distraction. By noon, half the report was alive on the page. Not polished, not perfect, but alive. And Daniel felt something he had not felt in months. Pride that was honest, not borrowed. That evening, as he walked home, temptation appeared in the form of a message. "Come out tonight. Drinks on us." His hand hovered over the screen. He could almost taste the laughter, the easy escape. But then he imagined tomorrow morning. Chaos, guilt, another empty promise. His chest tightened. He placed the phone face down and opened his laptop instead. Hours dragged like heavy chains. Every minute was a battle. But when midnight came, the report was finished. He leaned back, exhausted but alive, stronger than his excuses. Before sleeping, he whispered into the dark, "One day at a time. I can win." For 3 days, Daniel held the line. He woke early, worked with focus, even tidied his apartment. Leah noticed when they met for dinner. "You seem different," she said softly, her voice cautious but hopeful. He squeezed her hand, smiled weakly, and said, "I'm trying." But discipline is like a newborn flame. It glows, yet trembles at the slightest wind. On the 4th night, the storm came. The office was relentless. Calls, emails, demands. By the time Daniel reached home, his body screamed for rest. Just 10 minutes on the couch, he told himself. 10 became 60. 60 became 300. Midnight passed, and the report lay untouched. The couch cradled him like an enemy in disguise. The next day, he stumbled into the office late, shirt wrinkled, eyes red. His manager's silence stabbed harder than words. Leah didn't answer his texts. Shame crawled across his skin. The old voices returned, cruel and familiar. "See? You can't change. You'll always be the same." For a moment, he believed them. He saw his future collapsing, job gone, Leah gone, himself drowning again in excuses. Panic tore through him like a storm. Then, in the middle of the storm, he heard another voice. His father's words, "Control yourself before the world controls you." Daniel clenched his fists. He realized relapse was not the end. It was a test. The question was not whether he had fallen, but whether he would rise again. That evening, trembling but defiant, he opened his laptop and whispered like a soldier returning to the battlefield. "Not tomorrow. Now!" And line by line, word by word, he fought his way back. Sparkle's learning focus. This part introduces relapse, the moment of falling back into old habits. The metaphor discipline is like a newborn flame, shows fragility, while the couch cradled him like an enemy in disguise is a simile warning how comfort betrays us. Grammar highlights. Past continuous. Time was dragging. Voices were whispering. To show the slow slide into failure. In past simple. He clenched, he opened, he whispered. To mark recovery actions. Reflect. What mistake caused Daniel's relapse? How did this affect his work and relationship? Why did he whisper, "Not tomorrow. Now"? Daniel's relapse shook him. For hours afterward, he sat in silence, ashamed of how quickly comfort had dragged him back. Yet, in that silence, a new truth began to glow. Change was not about force or sudden bursts of willpower. It was about rhythm. One Saturday morning, he visited his father in a quiet suburb, far from the noise of the city. The old man listened patiently as Daniel poured out his heart. Missed deadlines, Leah's disappointment, the constant battle with laziness. When the flood of words ended, his father leaned back in his chair and spoke slowly, each word striking like a hammer on iron. "You think control is about crushing yourself into obedience," he said. "But real control is about rhythm. You cannot climb a mountain in one leap. You climb it step by step. Small wins, repeated daily, become unshakable power." The words sank deep, as if the ground itself had whispered them. Daniel carried them back to the city like treasure. That night, he created a rule, 5 minutes. No matter how late, no matter how tired, he would give at least 5 minutes to his most important task. The first evening was agony. His eyelids felt like iron gates. His body ached for the couch. He set a timer and forced his hands onto the keyboard. Each second dragged like wet sand. When the timer rang, he realized something shocking. He didn't want to stop. The momentum carried him. 5 minutes became 20. 20 became 60. When he finally closed the laptop, half the report was finished. The next morning, he woke with a strange lightness. Not the grand fire of a miracle, but the steady warmth of a small victory. He repeated the ritual the next night, and the next, and the next. Some days, he managed only the 5 minutes. Other days, he worked far longer. But the magic was not in the length. It was in the rhythm. With each repetition, he was training his mind to obey, not his laziness, but his will. Leah noticed. One evening, as they walked together, she studied his face and said, "You're different. You keep showing up even when you're tired." Her voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there in weeks. At work, Mr. Stan began to nod with approval. "Good progress," he remarked one morning, handing Daniel a rare smile. For the first time, Daniel felt the weight lifting from his shoulders. He wasn't fixed. He wasn't perfect. But he was no longer sinking. His father's words echoed in his heart. Small wins, repeated daily, become unshakable power. And Daniel finally believed he could build a new life, brick by brick, day by day. Sparkle's learning focus. Here, the concept of small wins is introduced. The metaphor, you cannot climb a mountain in one leap, shows why change must come gradually. The phrase hammer on iron captures how his father's words shaped his will. Notice grammar patterns, past continuous, seconds dragging, he was training to show ongoing struggle, and past simple, she noticed he finished, he repeated, to mark victories. Idioms include shift the tide, change the direction of events, and brick by brick, building steadily, patiently. Reflect. What advice did Daniel's father give him? How did Daniel apply the 5 minutes rule? What changes did Leah and his manager notice? Weeks passed, and Daniel's small wins began to stack like stones in a rising wall. His apartment looked cleaner, his reports sharper, his relationships steadier. For the first time in years, he felt ground beneath his feet instead of quicksand. Yet stability carries its own danger. Temptation often comes when we feel safe. One Friday evening, his colleagues gathered for drinks. "Come on, Daniel," they urged. "You deserve it. You've been working hard." The bar was bright with neon lights, the air thick with music, the clinking of glasses ringing like careless promises. At first, Daniel held firm. He sipped water, told himself he would leave early, but laughter swirled around him like a storm. Someone pressed a glass of whiskey into his hand. One won't hurt, he thought. One became two. Two became four. By midnight, the city spun as he stumbled into the night, his phone buzzing with Leah's message. "Are you coming over?" He didn't reply. He didn't want her to see him like this. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds like judgment. His head pounded. On the desk sat his unopened laptop. A deadline glared from the calendar like a cruel judge. The rhythm he had built day by day was broken. Shame struck harder than the hangover. His father's warning echoed. Control yourself before the world controls you. Yet here he was, dragged again by the oldest chains. Pleasure, escape, the false promise of comfort. For a moment, despair whispered, "You've lost it all. You're back at the beginning." He pictured his future crumbling. Job gone, Leah gone, himself drowning once more in excuses. But then, like a blade cutting through fog, another thought rose. No, this is not the end. One mistake is not the whole story. With trembling hands, he brewed coffee, sat at his desk, and opened the laptop. His vision blurred, his body screamed for rest, but he typed. Line by line, the report came alive. Slow, clumsy, imperfect, but alive. That night, he sent a short message to Leah. "I slipped, but I'm fighting again." Her reply came within minutes. "That's all I need to hear." Daniel leaned back, exhausted but certain of one truth. Falling is not failure. Failure is refusing to rise. Sparkle's learning focus. This part explores how temptation tests us after progress. The idiom, glasses clinking like careless promises, captures how fun can disguise danger. The powerful phrase, falling is not failure. Failure is refusing to rise, teaches a universal lesson. Notice grammar. Past continuous. Laughter was swirling, his vision was blurred. Creates atmosphere. While past simple, he stumbled, he brewed, he typed. Marks decisive actions of both falling and rising. Reflect. What temptation caused Daniel to stumble again? How did he feel the next morning? What did Daniel's decision to keep typing show about true failure? Daniel's rhythm returned. Slowly, steadily, like the tick of a clock, he rebuilt his progress. His 5-minute rule became second nature. His reports grew sharper, and Leah's trust warmed again. But deep inside, he sensed the real test had not yet arrived. It came on a stormy Thursday afternoon. His manager, Mr. Stanton, called him into the office. Rain streaked the tall glass windows, thunder rolling faintly in the distance. Mr. Stanton's voice was calm, but heavy with meaning. "Daniel, the company is launching a high-profile project. If it succeeds, it will define our year. I want you to lead the team. But hear me, if you fail, there will be no second chances." The words struck like lightning. For months, Daniel had been fighting just to stand on his own 2 feet. Now, he was being asked to lead others. Discipline was no longer about himself. It was about responsibility, reliability, trust. His chest tightened under the weight. That night, he stood by his apartment window, the city blurred through rain. Leah sat quietly on the couch, watching him. After a long silence, she said softly, "You're afraid." He nodded. "What if I collapse again? What if I ruin everything?" Leah rose, placed her hand on his shoulder, and spoke with calm fire. "Control doesn't mean you never fall. It means you rise faster than you fall." Her words lingered like a flame in his chest. The next morning, Daniel walked into the office with a new resolve. He gathered his team, outlined the project, and broke it into clear steps. At first, doubt gnawed at him. Could he keep them steady when he himself had failed so often? But then he remembered his father's wisdom. Small wins. He divided the massive project into daily victories, small enough to keep momentum alive. Each evening, he reviewed progress with the team. Slowly, almost invisibly, the impossible mountain shrank into a climbable path. Still, temptation stalked him. Some nights, old voices whispered, "Skip the work. Relax. You deserve it." But now, Daniel had a weapon. Leah's words, "Rise faster than you fall." He repeated them like a shield. The deadline loomed closer. For the first time, Daniel did not drown in panic. He was not perfect. He was not free of fear. But he was moving, one step, one stroke, one win at a time. He stood at a crossroads. Comfort behind him, discipline ahead. And this time, he chose a harder path. Sparkle's learning focus. This part emphasizes resilience and leadership. The idiom "make or break a career" highlights how one chance can decide everything. Leah's wisdom, "Rise faster than you fall," offered a practical definition of real discipline. Grammar patterns, past simple, he gathered, he outlined, he chose, marked decisive actions, while past continuous. Doubt was gnawing. Temptations were whispering, show inner battles still alive. Reflect. What opportunity did Daniel's manager give him? How did Leah help him face his fear? What strategy did Daniel use to lead his team effectively? The deadline dawned at the rising sun, fierce and unavoidable. Daniel and his team gathered in the conference room, their work displayed across glowing screens and thick binders. Executives filled the seats, their faces calm but unreadable like carved stone. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest, yet his voice came steady. Slide by slide, sentence by sentence, he presented the project. Every word carried the hidden weight of his struggle. The mornings when he forced himself out of bed, the nights when he whispered, "Not tomorrow." Now, the 5-minute victories that grew into hours, the temptations he had resisted. Silence followed his final words. For a moment, he thought the earth might swallow him whole. Then Mr. Stanton leaned back, nodded slowly, and said, "Impressive, well-structured, delivered on time. This is the discipline we expect from a leader." Applause filled the room. Polite, professional. But to Daniel, it was thunder in his soul. After the meeting, Leah met him in the hallway. She hugged him tightly and whispered, "You did it." But Daniel shook his head gently. "No, we did it. And not just this project. I've done something greater. I've learned to master myself." That evening, he returned home to his apartment. It no longer resembled the cave of neglect it once had been. The floor was clean, the fridge stocked, the desk organized. But the true transformation was not in the room. It was in him. He walked to the mirror where months ago he had whispered, "When did I lose myself?" Now, the reflection staring back at him was not flawless, not perfect, but awake, steady, alive. He leaned closer and whispered again, but this time with quiet certainty. "I am no longer my own enemy. I am my own strength." And in that moment, Daniel understood, the greatest victory is not winning over the world. It is winning over yourself. Sparkle's learning focus. This part ties the story together. The phrase, thunder in his soul, captures the inner power of external recognition. The mirror becomes a symbol, first of brokenness, now of renewal. Notice grammar. Past perfect, he had whispered. He had resisted. Links his past struggles to his present triumph. The idiom, "I am my own strength," transforms what was once weakness into empowerment. Reflect. How did Daniel prove that he had truly changed? What did the mirror symbolize at the end? What does the story teach us about real self-control? The weeks after the presentation felt different. Not because life became easier, it didn't. Deadlines still pressed like heavy weights. Distractions still called from every glowing screen, and old habits still lurked like shadows waiting for a weak moment. But Daniel had changed. He no longer believed in the illusion of tomorrow. He had learned the quiet strength of now. Each morning, he rose before the alarm and whispered his vow: discipline over delay, action over excuse. Those words, once shaky on his lips, had become a shield he carried into every day. Leah noticed the difference not only in his actions, but in his presence. He listened when she spoke. He kept promises, even the small ones, and slowly her eyes, once clouded with doubt, shone with trust again. At work, his colleagues no longer saw him as a man who missed deadlines, but as the one who kept the team steady, brick by brick, through storms of pressure. Mr. Stanton assigned him greater responsibilities, knowing he could be relied upon. But the greatest recognition came not from others. It came one quiet evening, when Daniel sat alone at his desk, the city lights twinkling through his window. His report was finished. His apartment was calm. He felt no storm inside, no panic, no shame. Just a steady warmth, like a fire that had finally caught and would not go out. He remembered his father's words. "If you don't command yourself, the world will command you." And he realized those words were not a warning anymore. They were his truth, because he had learned that success was not built in a single day of heroic effort, nor destroyed in a single night of failure. Success was built in the rhythm of small wins, in rising faster than you fall, in choosing action when excuses feel sweeter. And so, Daniel's journey from laziness to success was not the story of a miracle. It was the story of a man who finally chose to master himself, one moment, one choice, one day at a time. As he looked out at the city that once overwhelmed him, he whispered the final words of his journey. The victory was never out there. The victory was always within. Sparkle's learning focus. This conclusion delivers a moral. True success is not dramatic change, but steady discipline. The idiom action over excuse captures the central lesson. The metaphor of fire, once fragile, now steady, symbolizes inner growth. Grammar combines present simple. Success is built in small wins. To express universal truths with past simple, he whispered, he chose, he learned. To close Daniel's story. Reflect. 1. What did Daniel finally understand about the meaning of success? 2. How did Leah and his colleagues see the change in him? 3. What does the phrase, "the victory was always within," mean to you? Speech balloon for you, dear learner. What is one small win you will choose today to fight your own laziness? Share in the comments. I would love to read your answer. Thank you for staying with this journey. If you felt inspired, please subscribe, like, and share so more learners can grow with us. Until next time, remember, discipline today builds the success of tomorrow.